First up on the show, doubling down pressure on the Netanyahu government in Israel. The US President Joe Biden has threatened to stop the supply of heavy artillery and weapons to Israel if it goes through with the Rafah offensive. This comes just a day after the US paused the supply of American bombs to Tel Aviv as well. Now, in an interview with CNN, Biden said, "I made it clear that if they go into Rafah, I am not supplying the weapons that have been used historically to deal with Rafah, to deal with the cities that deal with and to deal with that problem." Over 1.5 million Gazans are sheltering in Rafah, which Netanyahu has called the last stronghold of the Hamas militant group. Amid a global public outcry, Biden is facing a tough choice domestically in an election year to clamp down on any further escalation in Gaza. America also faces the questions on whether its military support to Israel is in violation of international law, even as the Biden administration missed a deadline on a report on Israel's weapon use. Now, in his interview to the broadcaster, Biden also acknowledged that American bombs had been used to kill civilians in Gaza, referring to the 907-kilogram bombs whose shipments were paused last week. The U.S. is by far the biggest supplier of arms to Israel, accounting for 69% of Israel's imports of major conventional arms between 2019 and 2023. The U.S. provides Israel with $3.8 billion in annual military aid under a 10-year agreement, which allows its allies to maintain a qualitative military edge over its neighboring countries. Now, America is seeing unprecedented large-scale protests, especially at premier institutes and universities, against America's support for Israel's Gaza offensive. This is Biden's first public warning to Netanyahu. Israel's ambassador to the United Nations has called Biden's warning very disappointing, while earlier its chief military spokesperson expressed confidence that disagreements with the U.S. could be resolved behind closed doors. Despite the U.S. pressure, heavy shelling was reported in Rafah. The Israeli army said it was also striking Hamas positions further north of the Gaza Strip. And while talks are still underway in Cairo aimed at pausing Israel's 7-month-old offensive, the Palestinian militant group Hamas has said it was unwilling to make any more concessions to Israel. The group accepted a ceasefire proposal on Monday, negotiated by Doha, Washington and others. Now, the blocking of aid from the U.S. also raises questions on how Israel will continue its three-pronged offensive against neighboring states and foes such as the Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Iranian-backed proxies and the airstrikes from Syria and Iraq as well. And for the very latest on this, our correspondent Jody Cohen sent us this report from Israel. Listen in.
President Biden said his administration would not provide Israel with offensive weapons if Israel launches an offensive against Hamas in populated parts of Rafah. Israel's UN envoy called the statement very disappointing and suggested it would give hope to Israel's enemies. And in the US, even some prominent Democrats have suggested that Biden is pandering to far-left voters. But what are the implications? Now, Israel has said it's carrying out targeted operations against Hamas to put pressure on them in the talks. It says it's taking efforts to evacuate civilians and deliver aid through several routes, despite the Kerem Shalom crossing coming under repeated Hamas rocket fire. And IDF spokesperson Daniel Hagari said that coordination between Israel and the US has reached a scope without precedent. But some commentators are suggesting that the announcement could cause Israel to reassess its arms supply. This is Jody Cohen for WION World is One.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.